A single female bedbug can lay over 500 eggs in her short life. And while you're sitting there panicking about that, the pest control industry is salivating over the $4,900 check they're about to write themselves for a premium heat treatment. It's a total racket. Most people don't realize that the major players in this game are sitting on massive 45% profit margins, and they're doing it by selling you chemical sprays that, honestly, at this point, the bugs are basically immune to them. Actually, I was looking at the latest resistance data, and it's worse than I thought. Pyrethroids are almost useless now. Hi, I'm Paul Chang. I've spent my career looking for these weird asymmetric loopholes because I'm sick of seeing people get fleeced by Goliaths who thrive on your ignorance. There is a simple $1 white powder. It's dry, chalky, and looks like absolutely nothing that kills these things forever because it doesn't use poison. It uses physics. Wait, let me rephrase that. It's not that the pros can't use it, they just won't because it's a total margin killer. If you want to stop being a victim of these corporate markups, subscribe to the channel right now because what I'm about to show you is the exact reason Big Pest Control wants this information buried under a mountain of expensive contracts. You have to understand the scale of what we're up against here because this isn't just about bugs. It's about a $24 billion industry that is currently being rolled up by private equity firms who only care about one thing: quarterly recurring revenue. When an exterminator walks into your house, they're not looking for a permanent solution. Why would they? A permanent solution is a customer they never see again. They want you on a protection plan. They want that monthly hit of $99 to show up, spray some neon-colored liquid that smells like a chemical factory, and leave before the smell even hits your curtains. But here's the thing they're not telling you, and this is the part that actually makes me angry. Those chemicals, the pyrethroids and neonicotinoids they've been relying on for decades, are basically just vitamin water to modern bedbugs now. These things have evolved. They've developed these thick, waxy outer shells that chemicals just slide right off of. It's a biological arms race that the bugs are winning, and the industry's response isn't to find a better way, it's to hike the price and sell you a $5,000 heat treatment that might not even work if the bugs find a cold spot in your wall insulation. It's a massive Goliath, and they've built a fortress around their profit margins. Now compare that to this weird fossilized algae powder. It's called Diatomaceous earth, or specifically the food-grade version of it. Actually, wait, let me be very clear about that. Don't go out and buy the stuff they put in swimming pool filters. That's a completely different animal, and it'll mess up your lungs. I'm talking about the stuff that looks like baking flour, but is actually made of the microscopic skeletons of ancient aquatic organisms. It's pure silica. When you look at this stuff under a microscope, and I have, it's wild. It doesn't look like powder at all. It looks like a field of broken glass, shards, razors. Now think about the biology of a bed. They don't have skin like we do. They have an exoskeleton made of chitin and covered in a very specific, very thin layer of wax. That wax is the only thing keeping their internal moisture inside. If they lose that moisture, they die. It's that simple. So when a bug crawls through a nearly invisible layer of this white powder, those microscopic glass shards slice that waxy coating to ribbons. There's no chemical reaction, there's no resistance possible. You can't evolve a way to not get cut by glass. It's a mechanical kill. Once that shell is breached, the silica acts like a massive sponge, literally sucking the life out of the bug until it's just a tiny dried out husk. It takes a few days, sure, but it's absolute. It's final. And the best part is, it stays active forever. As long as it stays dry, those little glass shards stay sharp. You could put this down today, and it'll still be killing bugs 5 years from now if they try to come back. That is why the industry hates it. They can't sell you a monthly subscription for something that works once and never stops working. It's a total threat to their existence. I was talking to an old school technician a few months ago. Guy had been in the game 30 years, and he told me flat out that they are trained to steer customers away from dusts. They'll tell you it's messy, or it's ineffective, or it's a health hazard. They use these fear tactics to push you back towards the expensive proprietary liquids that they control the supply of. It's classic gatekeeping. They've basically blacklisted the most effective tool in history because it's too cheap to be profitable. But here is the catch, and this is why people think it doesn't work. Most people do it completely wrong. They buy a bag, they see a bug, and they start dumping it everywhere, like they're frosting a cake. I've seen houses where people have literal snowdrifts of white powder in the corners of their bedrooms. If you do that, you've already lost. Bed bugs are tiny, but they're not stupid. If they see a giant mound of dust, they'll just walk around it. You're basically building a tiny wall that pushes them deeper into your furniture. To actually make this loophole work, you have to be surgical. You have to understand the friction of how these things move through your house. Actually, let me think about the best way to describe this. It has to be a ghost layer. If you can see it easily, you've put down too much. It's about creating a death trap they don't even know they're stepping into. But there's a massive physical hurdle here that almost everyone trips over, and it has to do with how the powder actually behaves when you try to apply it to a vertical surface like a bed frame or inside a wall. If you don't get this one specific part right, you're just making a mess, and the bugs are still going to be biting you tonight. And honestly, the band part of this story, it gets even darker when you look at why the specific tools you need to do this right are so hard to find in your local hardware store. So let's talk about how you actually execute this without turning your bedroom into a construction site, because honestly, the mess is why most people give up and call the pros. If you just grab a handful of this stuff and start tossing it around, you're not killing bugs, you're just making a dusty mess that's going to get into your lungs and do absolutely nothing to the colony. I've had this powder on my hands before. It's bone dry, almost like it's trying to suck the moisture out of your fingerprints the second you touch it. And that's the problem. It clumps. It's heavy. If you try to spread it with a spoon or your fingers, it stays in these thick, cakey piles. And remember what I said, to a bed bug, a pile of powder is a mountain range. They'll just walk around it. You need what I call the ghost layer. It has to be so thin, it's almost invisible to the naked eye. Actually, let me rethink that. It's not even just about the thickness, it's about the static charge. When you use a professional-grade bulb duster, it's not just blowing air. It's agitating those microscopic silica shards and giving them a static charge so they actually stick to the surfaces they hit. This is the big secret the pros don't want you to know. You can't just pour this. You need to puff it. You need to get it deep into the electrical outlets, behind the baseboards, and into the tiny cracks in your bed frame where these things actually hide during the day. If you don't have a duster with a long, thin brass nozzle, you're basically bringing a knife to a gunfight. You'll never reach the breeding sites. You'll just be treating the surface while the factory keeps churning out more bugs behind your walls. Wait, I should probably mention this. Don't go crazy with the duster either. I once saw someone puff so much into an outlet they actually tripped a breaker. You just want a tiny, barely visible cloud. It should look like a light dusting of pollen on a car hood, nothing more. But even then, there's a second layer of friction most people ignore, and it's the bed itself. You can treat the floor all you want, but if your blankets are touching the carpet, you've just built a bridge for them to bypass the kill zone. This is where you have to be disciplined. You have to pull the bed away from the wall, 6 inches, no contact. Then you have to isolate the legs of the bed. I used to think you just needed to wrap the legs in tape or something, but that's actually a total waste of time because they'll just climb over the dust if it's not contained. You need these specific double weld interceptor traps. They look like little plastic moats that sit under the feet of your bed. You put a tiny puff of that silica powder in the outer well of the trap, and now you've created a mandatory death walk. They have to climb into that trap to get to you, and once they're in that powder, they're done. It's a physical certainty. But here's the thing. If you don't use those specific tools, the duster and the interceptors, you're just playing a game of whack-a-mole. You're killing the 1 or 2 bugs you see, while the other 10,000 are just taking the scenic route around your powder piles. It's the difference between a surgical strike and a messy failure. I've spent hours in crawl spaces and behind headboards, and I'm telling you, the smell of that dry, dusty air when you're doing it right, it's unmistakable. It's the smell of a permanent solution. But I have to be honest with you. There's a reason you can't just walk into a big box store and find a complete kit for this. They don't want it to be easy. They want you to get frustrated by the mess, so you give up and pull out your credit card for the $4,000 heat treatment. Actually, there's a specific legal reason why this information is kept so fragmented, and it has everything to do with a very intentional confusion campaign about whether this white powder is even safe to have in your house. And the truth about that is actually way more manipulative than you'd think. The reason you don't see this being talked about on the morning news or in those glossy home improvement magazines is because of a very deliberate, very effective confusion campaign. It's what I call a soft ban. See, if the industry can't legally ban a naturally occurring substance like fossilized algae, they do the next best thing. They poison the well of information. They take the legitimate safety warnings about pool braid diatomaceous earth, the stuff that's been heat treated and is actually dangerous to breathe, and they apply those same scary labels to the food grade version. They want you to think that putting this powder in your house is like inviting a respiratory catastrophe. Actually, wait, let me clarify that. Obviously, you shouldn't be snorting the stuff or throwing it into a fan, but food-grade silica is used in everything from grain storage to vitamins. It's safe when handled with a bit of common sense. But by blowing the risks out of proportion, Big Pest Control has successfully scared the average homeowner back into the arms of the chemical companies. It's brilliant in a sick way. They've turned a $1 permanent fix into a dangerous DIY mistake, while they charge you $4,000 for a chemical spray that the bugs are already laughing at. I've sat in rooms with these industry guys, and the way they talk about uninformed homeowners is honestly disgusting. They rely on your fear. They rely on that 2 a.m. panic when you find a bug on your pillow, and you're willing to pay anything to make it stop. But once you have that bulb duster in your hand, and you've puff-coated your wall voids, you've basically turned your home into a fortress that is biologically uninhabitable for bedbugs. And the best part? It doesn't expire. It's not like a chemical that breaks down after 30 days. This is a fossil. It's been around for millions of years, and it'll stay sharp in your floorboards for decades. Actually, I was thinking about this the other day. It's probably the only thing in your house that won't succumb to planned obsolescence. It's a permanent mechanical barrier. When you realize that you have the power to solve a $4,000 problem for the price of a couple of lattes, the whole Goliath narrative just collapses. You don't need them. You never did. You just needed the right data and a $5 plastic duster to apply it. It feels incredible when you finally see those dried out husks in the interceptor traps and you realize you did it yourself. You took back your home, you kept your money, and you beat a $24 billion industry at its own game. So get the food grade stuff, get the duster, and stop being a line item on someone else's quarterly profit report. You've got this. Stay savvy, stay skeptical, and I'll see you in the next one.